Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embodied Union podcast. And I'm Lindsay.
I'm Charlie.
And today we're going to be talking about
Devotion.
So we came to this topic because we're kind of thinking, what do we transcend once we're out of the honeymoon phase, we're out of the conflict phase, and we're really starting to transcend relationship and go and bring our skills of relationship to another level. How do we want to be in relationship? And I think the word that came to both of us in a way is devotion, is this state of being that goes beyond probably what we know in relationship, and being like a real stand for what the relationship needs at times, like beyond both individuals. Like, how are we giving to this entity that is our relationship?
I think that's a really good way to put it. Is how can we be in service to the relationship and to love? And I think where lots of people get stuck is they're in service to themselves, which I think you should be in service to yourself. But when you're a bit more unconscious and your ego is getting the better of you, you're not in service to your highest self, you're in service to your triggers. So I'd love to share what happened between us this morning to give it, so
Context.
you can really understand what we're saying. Like, Lindsay and I had a really beautiful intimacy practice this morning, and I'm flying out to Sydney in a few hours and everything's going really well, but we're also in the midst of moving. And we had a moment where Lindsay felt like I wasn't listening. I felt like he was being mean to me, and we kind of just went apart. I'm like, why are you being mean? He's like, why aren't you listening? And I went and had a shower. And then when I came back into the lounge, you just immediately were like, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. And just in that moment, I was just like, you're being in service to the relationship right now, because you're choosing to like say you're sorry, put the sword down, because it's what is best for the relationship, especially with me flying out and us having this morning together. And it's like, that's what I want to capture. That's what I want to share when I speak about devotion. It's like, how are you being in service to love beyond what your ego or your fear or your trigger might want you to do? So you choosing to repair in that moment, to me, was a perfect example of you being in devotion to the relationship.
Yeah, because I think when each individual can see what the relationship needs, it really is then like an easy choice. It's like knowing full well that it's not even about what we were talking about. It's just like, I don't want to be having an argument over which way the bed leans against the wall, and that sort of thing while we're moving. It's just, I love you and I love our relationship, and how ultimately do I want it to feel between us both? Like, majority of the time.
I will just say though, because you just said then that it's, when you think about, well, what's in service to the relationship, then it's just easy. I really don't think it is easy. I think even for us, we fall down sometimes because the ego and the trigger and the story can be so fucking loud. For the people who listen to this podcast, they're probably sitting there like, oh, it's easy on paper, but like, it's fucking not easy. When I'm in my trigger and I'm trying to be in service to the relationship, but every part of me is screaming, it's not fair, but you did this, you should say sorry first.
Why are you mean?
Why are you mean to me? Why aren't you listening to me? Like, it can feel excruciating in that moment of, in the heat of the moment, in the trigger, to choose love instead. And so that's, even though it is simple, it's not always easy, and we definitely don't always get it right, but I'm watching us get it right more and more of the time. And for me, it just really wasn't easy. It's like only in this relationship that I'm starting to improve in this way of being. And I think it's because you have been a really big teacher for me. Like, you've modeled to me repair and like really being in service to the relationship, and I see what beauty that brings. And so I've got to be in practice of it. But I just wanted to name that it's not always easy.
Yeah. And I think, thinking about my model of relating of the safety, trust, respect, it's in those moments realizing that there could be another way that this goes. I think that's what I inevitably do. I go, how could that gone different? or how would I like it to go moving forward in this moment, like this morning? It's, well, I'd like to come back into repair and move forward. So it's like, how can I take the leap first? How can I go first in it? How can I bring safety to the relationship or trust to the relationship to you that I'll apologize when I know I've done something? Sure, we might both have done something, but we really, I take it for me that it's just like, how can I bring more safety, trust, and respect? Inevitably, if I apologize or lean in repair from a place of like really meaning it as well, that brings more safety and trust and respect, into our sphere and into our togetherness, which I think is important.
And I think it's so important that both people in the relationship be willing to go first. So I did a post on this and I'm teaching this to women, but I just want to context and name that I did not go first for a really long time, like my little girl, when she was in her mad, there was no way she was going to go first because she needed you to go first, you to lean in first, you to soften first, you to sorry first, because she was trying to find the evidence that you love me. And if you love me, well, then you should make it better. But when it's that one-sided, when it's the same person who's always leaning in first with the softening and the sorry, it's like that is damaging the dynamic, I think, in the long term. So I think both need to be willing to go first. And I have had the experience that when I choose to go first, it always creates a softening in you and brings you back in, and it allows me to experience like very deep love with you. Like I think there's the feminine and woman has so much capacity to open her heart, and that like vulnerability and softness can really step a man forward. And like for so long I wouldn't go first and I kept my heart closed because it's not fair, and that's very like wounded little girl psychology, and it doesn't actually get me what I want, which is closeness. So if I can put my ego down and I can choose to open my heart when it wants to close, I can choose to open my heart even if your heart is closed, it's like I actually get to have a better experience of myself.
Yes.
And 9 times out of 10 it does call you forward into the experience I'm wanting. So it's like, can we be brave enough to be the one to go first? And if in relationship, if both partner made it a game, I'm going to be the one to go first. It's like, imagine what that could create, because most couples are currently playing the game of I will not go first.
Yes.
Which just creates so much disconnect and damages the integrity of the relationship over time.
And I think too, the couples that are in the dynamic of one person always goes first is typically also often the more anxious person, and when they actually do go first, the other partner rejects that bid for connection usually.
Yes.
Like they still are in it, instead of seeing like the bravity the courage the courage of the individual to go first in devotion to the relationship and not reject that devotion, like really like see it as, wow, this person is leaning in first to build the repair, to do it. Sure, maybe I'm not ready to repair just yet, but not to punish the person for leaning in first to want to repair or to want to make it better. I think that often I see that in the dynamic for people too, is someone's willing to put the sword down and the other person isn't ready to do that and wants to make it fight.
I know for me, it wasn't that I wanted to fight, but it's like if I'm in my mad and I'm feeling unseen or whatever's happening for me, whatever story I'm buying into, and say you come in with like, babe, I'm sorry, let's not fight, there would still be this part of me that didn't feel seen enough yet. So I would not be able to even put myself in your model of the world into your shoes of like, he's putting his sword down, he's choosing the relationship. I'd be so still shrouded in my how dare you that I couldn't even receive your extension of let's come into repair. And so this is why when I teach devotion, yes, being in devotion to relationship and to love, but you also have to learn how to be in devotion to yourself. And what I mean by that is in devotion to your own triggers. So for me, I had to really learn how to stop projecting my stuck in mad and sad at you and take it away myself and like go and look at it, you know, and like learn the skills of self-holding, self-soothing, self-regulating, self-inquiry. What am I making this mean? What's the story I'm putting on this? And like that is me being in devotion to my unhealed parts. And what most people do is their trigger comes up, it's so uncomfortable in their body, they discharge it out by getting mad and reactive and loud, or they collapse into it. And the work for all of us is how can I make a home for this in my body and be devoted to this little part that's like freaking out and so in distress, so that I then can receive your leaning in and repair.
And I think too, like we're speaking about repair quite a bit and being in devotion of the relationship. And I think most couples are probably thinking about devotion being like intimacy, you know, and it can be absolutely like I think about it often as far as really encouraging men to be in their creativity, in their intimacy and relationship, such that their partner and themselves are being met in a way that isn't familiar all the time, you know, and doesn't create, I guess it's like stagnation in the intimacy, because I think often women need probably more psychological intimacy and men probably desire more physical intimacy. And so when we're working with devotion, it's how am I bringing my essence to the relationship? How am I bringing my fullness, all of me to it? My vulnerability, my messiness.
Your presence.
Absolutely, my presence. And I think the context here that I want to really speak into is that presence is almost like the way that I keep devotion to myself. So it's more of an inward solo journey, presence. But I think if we can then cultivate that presence in ourselves as men in particular, when we come to intimacy and bring ourselves into our intimate moments with presence, the outward expression is devotion. And it feels like very, very different, I believe, for the feminine.
And like sometimes I get a bit confused because I'll go up into my head around, is it me? Is it you? I'm feeling something, but what I know is if you're not present with me, my experience of us in intimacy, I am in my head. I'm like, where are you? And is it because I'm in my head? Like this, my subtle sensitivity knows when you're not present. And when you are present, even just through like touch can be empty or full of present. Eye contact can be present or distracted. And when you give me present touch, present look, it pulls my body into presence. And I find for me, the biggest like kind of cock block to my own arousal and libido is I'm not present. And yes, it's my responsibility to be in presence, but you can support that by being in presence. It's like masculine presence kind of anchors me like right here. I'm here. I am being seen. I'm being witnessed. It's like I can't escape that. It's like very potent.
Definitely. And I think too, like beyond the erotic blueprints, or beyond the love languages, it's like really getting to know for each of us what our partner's real desire in intimacy or in lovemaking is. Like truly, what is it that we are striving for or wanting to experience when it comes to sex, intimacy, such that, like, to be honest, most of us probably have a different desire or outcome that we want when we have intimacy. Like I know for me, being someone that's more sensual, it's like slowness, closeness, those sorts of things I desire when it comes to intimacy. I definitely know for you, closeness is one, being held, having me be very present. Like it wasn't an accident that this morning was really delicious. It's because I know there's a part of you that wants lots of closeness when it comes to intimacy.
Yeah, I'd like to share about this morning as well. Because,
Would you now?
Yeah, because I also think it was a very good example of you being in devotion to our intimacy. So
Right.
the experience I have inside of intimacy is sometimes I'm a little slow out the gate. You know, like I'll feel your sexual energy, and because I have had in the past lots of blocks around sex, I still can have a bit of a story that runs. And so this morning I had a bit of I'm feeling a bit of pressure because I'm flying to Sydney today, so we should have sex.
Right.
And like this pressure story that I'm creating, not that you're putting on me, already is starting to make me not that available for intimacy. And so I'm aware of this story that I'm running, and I just keep kind of parking it, breathing, coming back into the moment. But I noticed you this morning, the way you were with me was so patient and so slow. And just, there was even a comment that I made, something around, well, my body's not ready for penetration. And I heard myself say it. And it wasn't like you were even trying to move us towards penetration, but it was me kind of just like pushing away, just even in that statement. But you and your being and your presence and your slowness, and just, I could feel the no agenda, and I could just feel the relaxation that eventually took over me. And then eventually the arousal did start to kick in. And I just had this realization that because I've been in the experience with partners where there really was so much pressure around sex. And so them just feeling my no, that would have put them into a trigger, and like, why bother? And it just wouldn't have gone anywhere, and we would have gone apart feeling disconnected. But you felt all my like no and disconnect, and you just kind of stayed with that. You stayed with me. And
I'm going to interrupt there. There was at no part your body being a no, but your head yes. But I've learned to not listen to your head, and I listen to your body.
But you still don't, even with that, you're still not taking me anywhere that I don't want to go. Because even if it's my head that's a no, there's still a no there on some level. So if you try to take me too fast, it would then become like a resistance, you know? But anyway, we had this beautiful intimacy practice. It was freaking amazing. And then in reflection afterwards, I was like, wow, what I appreciate about you, Lindsay Beister, is that you're so in devotion to our intimacy that the way that you show up with patience and presence is such an invitation for me to like be a little slower out the gate, but to get there. And you don't make me wrong for that. And there's just, again, I was just like, yeah, this is the way you said sorry this morning, the way that you met me in intimacy, both beautiful examples of how you are in devotion to our relationship being a really beautiful experience.
Yeah. And
I felt like that was really long-winded to get to the point.
A bit slow out the gate.
Yeah, I am sometimes.
And I love that.
You never make me wrong for that.
No. Well, I know my own tempo in myself, you know, and that's been something that I've been transversing myself of late around, like not making myself wrong for the pace in which I like to go in life and be in life. So I think, you know, the whole piece around having an agenda or trying to get somewhere to be in devotion, it's like as soon as you're trying to be in devotion,
you're not in devotion.
It's not really in devotion anymore. It's really like letting it be there, you know. And I think I've talked about this a lot, but it's the difference between pleasing someone and appeasing someone. It's like if I'm trying to please you, it's very different from being just fully in the experience and in the devotion and in the being of it all, rather than trying to be there.
Well, we said it this morning, like there's a really big difference between me getting you your coffee in the morning and being like, here's your coffee, just to appease you, and then the experience of me being like, here is your coffee, and like, sir, and it's sensual and sweet, you know? So it really is the energy behind what you're doing. And like, there's such a big difference between appeasing someone and showing up in devotion.
Because I get that. I think there's, you know, I've worked with plenty of men that feel like they're teammates, you know, and teammates
with their partner.
Yeah, and like, well, you do this and I do that, and it's kind of not really in devotion. It's kind of well, you just do your role and I'll do my role. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it's
And if anyone drops their role, it's like big problem.
big trouble. Yeah. And I think that it's like, this is just, again, another layer beyond, because I think for a lot of couples, it's like, where does the relationship go once you're out of conflict? Because if we aren't understanding what polarity is and we don't really know how to develop a relationship, we'll inevitably become friends, housemates, you know, teammates, and there'll be, you know, very potentially a lack of intimacy. And sure, you might have regular sex in your relationship, but does it feel devotional? Does it feel incredible? Is it something that inspires you for the rest of the day once you've had those moments, you know? And I think there's something to be learnt about creating that for yourselves, however that looks, and learning the skills to do so, and really getting a deep appreciation for the other and what they truly desire underneath, you know, sex and intimacy. Like, what's it really doing for the relationship? So you got something coming up.
I do, and I just want to kind of circle all the way back around to kind of where we started at the beginning, with around devotion also being in service, or like in devotion to being willing to look at your own triggers. Like, that to me is a devotional woman. She's willing to self-hold, self-soothe, and self-inquire rather than project and blame. And I've had this experience so many times with couples that I work with, where I'm working with the woman and I'm like teaching her how to show up in this way, to put her sword down, to initiate repair, to self-reveal, and then she'll go and her partner won't meet her in that. So then she comes back to me and she's like, well, he won't do it, and so what's the point? And you're missing the point. You're actually not putting your sword down, saying sorry first, softening first, opening your heart first for him. You are, in a way, and for the relationship, but it is also a gift that you're giving to yourself. It is actually a way of being that is in service to the woman that you are. And over time, if you're truly embodying what we're talking about and you're willing to put your sword down and soften and open, and your partner consistently cannot meet you in that, over time the relationship will just feel out of alignment and it might end up that you're parting ways. But just because you open your heart and lean in and he doesn't, it's not a reason to close. That is, because like, you don't want to be there. Then you're just two people that are enclosed and shut down. And it's like, we want to, regardless, we're doing this for us first and foremost, and then to be in service to him and to love. And so I wanted to name that because I do have a program that's coming up in a couple of weeks. It is called Devoted, and it's all about learning how to be first and foremost in devotion to yourself in all the ways that I've just spoken about, then how to be in devotion to him, so that we can really inspire our masculine partner to come forward and cherish our hearts and bring his leadership and bring his strength. And he wants to, because he is so feeling the way that we're in reverence of him and respecting him, and it just innately inspires like him to come forward. And also how to be just in service to love and to relationship. So how to like have a really powerful relationship. And so this program is going to cover all of this. It will be some somatic practice as well as teaching, so that you can get a felt sense of devotion in your body, because I think that that is really important, that you not only understand what I'm saying, but you feel it, so you can anchor it in and then take it with you. And it is for partnered and single women. You don't need to be in a relationship to come along.
Great.
If you're in a relationship, it'll serve your relationship. If you're single, it'll give you a blueprint to take forward. And if you're interested, then what will I do?
Link in the show notes?
I'll put a link in the show notes, and you can also find me on Instagram. I am Charlie S. Hannah, and we can have a bit of a chat to see if it's the right fit for you.
And if you're a man and you are interested in learning how to become a devotional masculine man, then come work with me, Lindsay B at Instagram.
Yeah.
And if you like following people and you like our podcast, you can always follow the Embodied Union Instagram page as well, and give us a like and a follow on YouTube as well. We'd love to see more of you, and if you're in relationship and you really want to take it, you know, if you know that this is the relationship that you want to be in and you want to develop it, work with it, and maybe work with someone like us, we would love to. So reach out. My love, thank you so much.
Thank you
for your
sweetheart.
devotion.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure.